So with that, I'm going to call up the panel members that I have, and we're going to talk about how decisions are made, how it is when you get a diagnosis and what happens and who you have to talk to, because you become an advocate by definition. You have to tell your children, you have to talk to your partner, you have to tell your extended family members who will probably say, oh, I think everything will be fine in a minute. Or my aunt's friend has another disease like MS and she's fine. So you have to always tell the story. So we're going to talk about that, when it's successful, when it's not successful, when it's hard, and how that works. So I'm going to ask Heather the Hayes to come up. Where's Heather and Tristan? And Jess and Hannah? And also Jen Schwartz to come up to the stage. I told them to be ready, so. All right. All right, so first, this is a panel, and we're going to talk about the diagnosis, how you tell each other, how you hold each other up. What are the things that are the hardest, the easiest? I don't think any are too easy. But the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to have each of the panel members introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with you, Tristan.
I am Tristan Hay. My wife is here, Heather Hay, and we have 2 boys with Duchenne, Liam, and they're both back up at the hotel room, probably playing their Switches and watching TV. But I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and Kellen is the younger one.
Hi, as Tristan said, I'm Heather Hay. We have 2 boys with Duchenne, and we're from Olympia, Washington. It's good to be here.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Schwartz. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. I have 3 children. I have a daughter who's 16, I have a son who's 12 who has Duchenne, and then a son who's 9 who does not have Duchenne.
Hi, my name is Jess Divin. I'm here from Chicago with my daughter Hannah. She is my oldest. She is 21. I have a son, Ben, 19 with Duchenne, and a younger daughter, Katie, who is 15. And my husband, Andy, is back in Chicago with the other 2. And we're just really happy to be here today to share our story.
Hi, as my mom said, I'm Hannah Divin. I'm the oldest sibling of 3, so I have a younger brother, Ben, with Duchenne, and then a younger sister, Katie.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Jen Schwartz, just because I'm going right to the middle. So can you tell us a little bit about the diagnosis, when it occurred, how it occurred? You probably could describe the person in the room and what they were wearing, I'm certain. But then what? You went home and spoke to who?
Yeah, great question. So our son's diagnosis was a total shock to us. All of our children are about 3 years apart. So when Ben was 3, we had our youngest son, and I realized I'm carrying Ben and the baby everywhere, and so that kind of tipped me off. But we did have a relatively quick path to diagnosis. We got to a certified Duchenne clinic at the University of Iowa, and they were the first ones to confirm for us that, yes, this is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The first thing that we did is we went home and started Googling, which is exactly what they told us not to do. But we ran across great resources of things like PPMD that really talked about how individuals with this can really live and what things are out there that they can do. So we tried to focus on some of those things. My husband and I both had different places that we would go to. You quickly find the friends that engage in meaningful conversation for you through the diagnosis path. So there's people that I would talk to that wanted to give a lot of sympathy, and while it was appreciated, that wasn't what I needed. There's some people who would talk to me pretty frankly to say, yep, this is hard, and here are the things that you should be thinking about that you should do. And those were the people that were really meaningful to me, and so those are the ones that I gravitated to. We also realized at diagnosis, my husband and I approached this very differently. My husband looked very much at the research that's happening, so he'll dive deep with the doctors and the researchers. I was very focused on the things that would help Ben in his day-to-day life. So looking at, what do we need to think about school? What's the right PT regimen that we need to be on. And sometimes we would get a little frustrated with each other, thinking the other person isn't helping. It took us a few months, but we realized we're both helping in different ways, and really a great complement to each other. So we really dove down those paths to start to learn, found the right organizations to help us, and then the right people to bounce things off along the way.
Thank you. And Hannah, so tell us a little bit about your experience. Your parents received a diagnosis, and how did they tell you? And tell me a little bit about school and friends, and how did that work? Have you told your friends in high school?
Yeah, so my brother was diagnosed when he was 4, so we have a 2-year age gap, so I was 6. The biggest thing I remember was just my parents explaining it in terms of special muscles. So they would say like, oh, like he can't run as fast as you, he has special muscles. Or when we'd be going to doctor's visits, clinical trials, oh, he has special muscles. So that's kind of what, when I was like in elementary school, what I told all of my friends. I think the first time I started like really processing that was, so I went to private school as a child, like K through 5, and my brother got put into public school just because my school didn't have the resources to help him. And that, I think, when I was kind of like, oh, like this isn't just, he can't run as fast. It might have a little bit more going on. It was definitely hard growing up trying to explain that to friends, especially when you're in adolescence. I think that's probably the hardest age for siblings, is that like 10 to like 14 range, because you don't want your friends to almost pity you in a way. You don't want them to be like, oh, and it's just a weird time. You don't want to be seen as different, but I think that once you get past that and you start taking a little more pride in it, you'll find that people are a lot more empathetic than you think.
Thank you. And Heather, you have 2 boys with Duchenne. These are your only 2 children, right? Talk to us about the diagnosis from one to the other.
Yeah, so Liam, our oldest, was diagnosed when he was 6 in 2021. It had been years of telling our pediatrician that, you know, he runs slow, he can't climb. Finally, she referred us to a physical therapist, and he's the one who noticed the symptoms. We were shocked. Well, I'm the one that was at the PT with Liam, and I was just like, I don't know what muscular dystrophy is. So we kind of went home, and we were in disbelief. I mean, it didn't run in my family. We had no idea. And so we finally, our pediatrician referred us to the local children's hospital, and that's where we went first. And they ran the CK test, and you know, we'd already looked up things on Google before we went to the appointment, so we knew a high CK was indicative of Duchenne. And so we got the number back, and it was like 21,000 or something. And I mean, we bawled on the spot. Luckily, we had family there with us who were taking care of our boys, so the boys didn't actually see that point when we fell apart. But it was absolutely devastating. We're in disbelief. We don't have much family near us. Tristan has a sister who came down to be with us. She and her family were there with us, kind of just holding us up. So I feel like now it's kind of a blur, but we were definitely in a really dark place. And then we find out, you know, as a mom, I could be a carrier, and our younger son could have Duchenne. And those things were both really scary. And we actually waited almost 2 months before we tested our youngest for high CK levels, because we felt like we could only deal with one child at a time. And so just 2 months after Liam had his CK tested, we tested Kellen as well. And his CK came back with as 20,000, which all of you who have kids with Duchenne know that's a number that says you have Duchenne. So it was kind of bizarre in that when Liam was diagnosed, the first child, it was so hard and so devastating. And for, you know, with the second child, it wasn't quite as bad, because we kind of knew about it and knew details about it. And one of the things that really got us through was the community. Not having family nearby us, we didn't have a lot of people to rely on. And so many of you who are here today actually reached out to our family and Honestly, I can't thank you enough. You got us through a really hard time, and that's kind of why we're here as well. We want to be there to help other people, but diagnosis is a really hard time. So to those of you who are newly diagnosed, if you have any questions or want a hug or anything, please just come find us. So.
Thank you. And so Jess, talk to us about, so you've been with us for a number of years. So talk to us about the diagnosis and where you are now.
Oh, wow. That's 15 years. That's a really long span. How much time do we have?
We have time.
Okay. So, gosh, diagnosis is a thief, isn't it? That came into our lives and stole our plans, stole some of our joy, stole a lot. And I would say after diagnosis, we fell into this deep, dark, black hole of a cavern, and I'll tell you why. I love taking pictures, and if you look back to those 3 months following diagnosis, I have no pictures on my camera roll. Like, I don't even really remember that time. Of course, we had an infant who was 4 months old at the time, so we're managing this baby, managing a diagnosis, and we didn't even really know where to go. And we reached out just to our local clinic, and in turn, they sent us a packet that had information on invasive venting and wheelchairs, and here we are looking at this 4-year-old who's still like climbing up the stairs, and we were just kind of baffled. So we fell into this dark hole, and we remained there for quite a while, but I remember getting someone telling me about PPMD and getting my first like packet in the mail. And there was a letter from Pat. I don't even know what the letter said, but I know how it ended. And it said, "The sun will shine again." And I think I stood there in my kitchen, I remember, and I sobbed because I was like, will it really? And it did. And that was just like the first building block that kind of like started to bring us out there, because you're down there and you're looking up and you're going, oh, everyone's having a normal life and we're caught down here, and you've got your friends and family members even yelling down like, hey, thoughts and prayers. You're like, great, thanks. But that was just the beginning. And then we came into this community and never looked back. And I can't imagine navigating some of the things we did without PPMD. And then here we are now. Like, if you were to tell me a diagnosis that I'd be up here talking, that my 6-year-old would be up here talking with me, that my son was getting ready to apply to the University of Illinois and go away to school, like, I would have been shocked. I would have been like, there's no way. So I'm just, I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for Pat. And just for those of you who are here your first time, where you need to be.
Thank you. So Tristan, you're outnumbered here, right? And often I think women, moms, kind of say, you're in a different spot than me, maybe more practical. And I remember a long time ago when my boys were diagnosed, my husband made plans to put an elevator in the house and add on. I almost killed him, right? Like, we're not going there. And he was practical. And the more practical he was, the more crazy I got. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so by trade, I'm a professional scientist, unfortunately not a geneticist, but so when I get news, my brain automatically goes to kind of like the fact-based, what's the percentages, what are my statistics, and that kind of thing. And Heather's a little more optimistic than me, so for me, it took me a little bit to move on and start changing the way I think, but there definitely is that I want to get stuff done. I want to do something to help my boys. So whether it's building a ramp, whether it's flattening down some hills in the yard with a tractor, just kind of making life easier for my boys. What can I do with whatever I have to make my boys' life easier? So I guess there's that little bit of difference between my wife and I. She's very, like, she'll show her emotions on her sleeve and stuff, and I don't show my emotions very much, so I kind of hide it a little bit. But yeah, the practicality is definitely something.
So I'm going to just stick with that. You don't show your emotions. We would like that a little bit more, I think.
Oh.
But then where do you go for help? Do you just keep doing things, or is there some place where something has helped you?
Yeah, I'm sure I could say horrible things like drugs and alcohol, but no, never did any of
Oh,
that.
good. Well, here's the
but
place,
my
right?
wife and I've always had anxiety myself, so in a way it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because now that I get horrible news, I kind of already had this mechanism to help me get through horrible anxiety. So I have a therapist who I would see for anxiety, and now I just see her for Duchenne-related stuff. The other Duchenne parents have been amazing. That's one thing that really helped us when we first got diagnosed. There was another couple who also have two boys with Duchenne. They reached out to us after diagnosis and kind of like helped us through. So talking with a lot of the other dads, and that same dad, I meet him every month for like coffee or something, and we just talk about all the horrible things we go through. And it's weird how you end up making jokes out of bad situations, but that community, which is what we've been talking about, is super helpful, and I urge everyone to find that community and just go meet whoever your neighbor is right now, and we're all here for the same thing, so you don't have to do the explaining. It's easier to talk when you have that community that understands.
And you're allowed to crack jokes and laugh. Drugs and alcohol, limit yourself.
Yeah, they're prescribed drugs.
No, exactly. Jess, tell me about your relationship. How did that change? Did you see this distancing in terms of believing that your husband was grieving in a different way and you couldn't reach them?
Well, so interestingly enough, Andy and I will have been married 25 years on Tuesday. And I think I have selective memory in the past 25 years, but he reminded me we were not good. And it wasn't that we were arguing through diagnosis, is that we couldn't process what we were going through, much less our relationship together, and we stopped communicating. And he reminded me that we actually went through like a year of counseling just to learn how to like figure this out as a team. And I remember that, and I feel like ever since then, we're not perfect. I'm gonna stand up here and tell you that right now, but we have found a way to figure it out. And the cool thing about, I think, where we are now is that we've learned to encourage something outside of our home, outside of Duchenne, that makes us feel whole, that makes us feel together. His happens to be music and guitars, and he better not buy another guitar. Mine happens to be running and being outside, and I think that's the beauty of it, is that we learn to start sharing tasks. We are equal caregivers. We are equal caregivers to our healthy children, and I think it had to be a partnership in order to work.
So Jen, tell me about you.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add really quick here was there were times where my husband and I wouldn't talk about the diagnosis because I would think, gosh, she seems happy tonight. I don't want to bring it up because it was heavy on my heart, and I didn't want it to be heavy on his heart too. But after a while, we had to say, you know what, we're the only two in this boat who really understands what this is like for our family, so we need to bring those things up. So that was a good reminder once we had that conversation to say, even though you see something some night, just, struggling to do something that seemed easy 6 months ago, it's still good for us to have that conversation, even if it means, somebody's coming down a little bit, and there's another night where somebody's coming up a little bit. So. Back to your other question, Pat, you said a little bit about me. Yeah. So it's funny that you say that when you're a busy mom with 3 kids, because sometimes I think, what do I like to do? I don't know that it's 9-year-old baseball games, although I love to watch them. I think my daughter and I, before we came to the conference, my sons and my husband stayed at home because they all had commitments, but we snuck away for a day yesterday and went to Zion National Park, and we got to do something that is physically challenging for Ben. So we still go to national parks together, but we were able to do a hike that we had been looking forward to. And I didn't realize until we were driving home last night how much that filled my cup. For me to be able to go do something without having to think about all of the extra things that you have to think about from an accessibility standpoint. And don't get me wrong, we will do that every day of the week when we want to have Ben with us and when we're trying to make something work for him. But this opportunity just happened that it was her and I traveling, and we got to go do something. It was a beautiful day outside. It was hot outside. But when we were driving back, I was thinking, I need to remember to be sure that I do those things that fill my cup too, similar to what you were saying, Jess, because it's way too easy to get lost. In fact, I almost thought I should push our flight back. I need to do a few more things at work. I need to finish this up before we go. And I thought, no, we really need to take some time to do this. So those are some of the things that I really enjoy doing, and it's hard to do, but in retrospect, it really helps keep your bucket in the good spot.
Thank you. So Hannah, I think one of the worries that parents have is that when we see a diagnosis in one of or more of our children, that the healthy children don't feel our attention as much, and we kind of look at you and you're like, you're fine, just don't screw up and just go on your own, right? Maybe we didn't say don't screw up, but in our head we might have. So tell me about that. Did you feel that way? Do you feel that way? And were you able to say to them, hello, I'm here?
I definitely think that my parents did a great job. Thanks, Mom. But I think that it's kind of unavoidable that there are going to be moments where siblings feel almost invisible, I guess is the right word. Not necessarily forgotten, but like seen through. And I think that's something that I've personally talked to a lot of other siblings about, is that we feel pressure to be perfect. And that's not pressure that was put on me by my parents. It's almost pressure that I put on myself. So especially because my brother was in a clinical trial throughout when I was in elementary school, and Mom and Ben were gone for hospitals, and Dad and Ben were gone for hospitals, I kind of thought, well, I have to be perfect so that they don't worry about me, because they worry a lot about Ben. And I think that caused a lot of mental health struggles as well, and just feeling like I wasn't as important as he was. But I do think that my parents saw that, and something that I think is pretty invaluable is one-on-one time. Whether you're a Duchenne family or not, I think having one-on-one time with your parents is super invaluable, and it kind of gives me a space to express how I'm feeling. And just also understanding that your parents' responsibilities might look different with you, and that's okay. You're not going to be seen in the same way as your brother is, but you're still going to be seen. Similar to me and my younger sister. We don't expect our parents to do the same things for us because we are different kids. And I think something else that has really helped me, similar to what everybody else has said, is finding an escape and just finding something you can do to express yourself and get out of your head and just get out of your thoughts, because I think that's really where a lot of stuff gets lost.
Thank you. So, and your friends, who did you go to say, I think I might be invisible? Was it your parents or your friends first?
A lot of times it was my friends first. I had a very solid friend group throughout high school, and I'm also have a very strong friend base now, and I'm very grateful for them. I think that something that was a unique advantage to me is that I've always had a few friends who have gone through not the same thing, obviously, but one of my closest friends, her younger sister, was also in the hospital a lot growing up for other reasons, and we could both kind of understand each other, and it was super helpful just to have somebody who knows what you're going through, whether that's another Duchenne sibling or whether that's somebody who's not a sibling at all.
Thank you. So, Heather, I think sometimes, at least in my experience, when I talk to some of the moms, it's like I don't have a minute to myself, because if I take a minute to myself, then I'm not a good mom, which most of us aren't at some point in our lives, or maybe all of our lives. But we get guilty about not doing enough, not doing it enough all the time, every day. So, do you feel guilty? You're allowed to say, it's safe audience, but tell us how you manage.
I do feel guilty. I think that's a common feeling when you want to do things for yourself and your children need so much from you. I'm not very good about doing the things that I would like to do or enjoy. I always say my time to myself is sitting on the chair playing a game on my phone. So I'm not, which, you know, is fun, but I would rather go out and do something else, I think. But I do have that guilt. You know, should I be spending the money to do something? I should probably be cleaning my house or making a meal or calling to make doctor's appointments or, you know, you guys know how it is. There's a lot going on. And I feel like moms aren't the only ones who feel guilty too. I know Tristan has felt guilty about, you know, wanting to go out and do things. Like, I don't think we've had a trip together since our sons were diagnosed alone. And that was, you know, they were diagnosed 4 years ago. So I don't think I'm really great at, I haven't gotten through it yet. I'm still trying to figure out what brings me joy and actually how to go out and get it done. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to give advice about that because I'm still learning how to do that myself.
Talk to me about guilt, Jess. Guilt.
Guilt? Oh, yeah, it's there. Even now, we went to clinic just a few weeks ago, and you know, you show up and it's 6 months later, and they said, "Oh, have you done this or this or this?" And you're like, "We did one of the 3 of those." Or I even remember when Ben was little, stretching. That dreaded question, "Are you stretching every night?" And deep down wanting to go, "Yes, of course," you know, and just completely lie about it because I carried a lot of guilt in many ways. Not only the guilt that I wasn't doing enough, the guilt that I was making the wrong decisions, the guilt of being a carrier. So it was really heavy. That word failure hung over my head quite a bit. It still creeps in now and then, but I think now I handle it a little better. There's not quite as much guilt, realizing that we're all human, and that despite feeling that I made some poor decisions along the way, I made the best decision at that time with the amount of information I had, and not really hanging on to that, because you're going to make some tough decisions, and you're going to have to stick to that decision and commit and not look back. So I think it is important to hear us up here saying, "Hey, it's okay. You're not guilty. Don't feel guilty. You're not a failure. And you made the decision to come here and learn more and be in community and reach out to people and arm yourself with knowledge." And I think knowing that you can do all that you are doing is enough.
So Jen, when you go to the clinic, and we have interdisciplinary clinics that are amazing, and then you see all of the people, right, which is a lot of people, often in a single day, and you get a laundry list of stuff to do. How do you manage that? And do you have a checkbox and go through it all, or do you pick the 3 things that you can do and go from there?
That's a great idea. I mean, coming out of clinic is a long day. I usually am keeping a list on my phone of all the things that we need to do. I will say that there are times where we make very intentional trade-offs. You know, something like stretching. My son got invited to a friend's house, and my husband said, "Oh, he hasn't stretched yet tonight," you know, and I'm like, "Yeah, this may be night 2, you know, that we're going to skip the stretching because we want him to have that social life." So we try and keep that big picture in mind of those things. But coming out of clinic, we usually prioritize our top 2 to 3 things that we think that we can commit to that have the right balance for us and give us the benefits that we're hoping for. We also will have very honest conversations with our providers on what things feel realistic for us and what things maybe are too much for us at any point in time. Usually our team is great if we say, "You know what, I appreciate you brought that up. Could we talk about that in 6 more months? Or if I was thinking about these 2 things, which one would you focus on first?" I also fall into the same, like at month 5.5, you're like, "Oh geez, we were supposed to do that. We were supposed to do that." So I try and get myself like that reminder in 2 weeks to be like, okay, I need to make some phone calls. I need to set this up for the things that fell to the top of our list. I also will talk with, I'm in the state of Iowa where we have a PPMD connected community. And so we'll send messages to parents to say, "Hey, in your guys' experiences of these things, what worked best for you or what was most impactful?" So I'm talking to moms who are further along the way, and they provide me with really meaningful information. And then I also hope that I can provide some of those insights to new moms coming further behind us.
Thank you. So Tristan, now we know you haven't been on a vacation together. As you think about this, right, there's only a finite amount of money in any family. And how do you talk about, if Heather says, now I'd like to, take a trip to Hawaii for 3 weeks. How do you think, I would like to do that anyway, but how do you think about that? How do you have this discussion about what is possible, what's going to fray every possibility that you have in terms of money, and then how do you balance all of that with the boys and trying to give them the best opportunities that you can think about?
Yeah, that's a good loaded question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're funding-wise, I guess we're a little blessed in that I have a decent, was stable job until I'm a scientist for the government, so normally I have a stable job, but usually my job's stable, I have an okay income, so that kind of helps just with the baseline. But there is that, I would love to update my house. I would love to go on vacations as much as I could. But we do have to use our money wisely. As you know, our boys, just their equipment costs a lot. And we've had a lot of help from Duchenne organizations that will also help us. But yeah, there is I will say, before the diagnosis, I was very much future planning. Let's save money to do this. Let's save to do this. Let's not do anything. But now that we do have the Duchenne diagnosis, I'm a little bit more free with how we do stuff. I'm kind of like, well, let's live for today. So if we want to go visit the relatives, or let's go, last year we went to Hawaii, not for 3 weeks, I wish. But we did go to Hawaii with the kids, and we're like, let's do it. And that turned out to be one of the best things. Except for Volcanoes National Park, the kids hated me for that one because it was rainy and you could only see 2 feet with the fog. So yeah, they're still mad about that. But yeah, so we kind of do take that, let's do something that makes us all happy, and maybe we'll worry a little bit later. Heather, does that sound? Yeah, okay. She's on board with me, so yeah.
Jess, what do you do to make all of you happy at the same time?
To make all of us happy, all 5? Well, let me tell you about my family. We have 3 very sarcastic children who probably give us more of a hard time just about life in general. I don't think we do. What do we do? You can often find us out with a deck of cards. We try just spending time together. Board games are kind of our jam, inviting people over. We found it's become, at Ben's age, more difficult to go into people's homes. We almost had a little accident with the portable ramp, so now we're really cautious. So we've always just opened our house, and no matter, well, if you come to my house, just don't open the closets, because that's where everything goes to make it look clean. But community, like having people over, laughing, that's kind of our jam. We're not huge vacation people. What else do we do? I don't know.
Video games.
Well, yeah. Well, that's
Making
a given.
fun of mom.
Making fun of mom. Yep, that's it. Yep, they all agree on that one. Fight about everything else. Yeah. So I think we had to let go of a lot of expectations, and I think that's also made us just a better family and our time together. And it's kind of cool. You have these little humans, and then they become big humans, and they're actually pretty cool.
Thank you. So Jen, let's talk about friends. Before a diagnosis, sometimes we have friends, and then after a diagnosis, those friends change. Can you talk about that? Have your friends changed over time?
My friends for me?
Everyone's friends in your family.
Yeah. I would say my friends definitely did change. There were some friends that really recognized the impact that this has on our lives and the way that we wanted to approach it. And those are the friends that I would dive in head first with. There are some friends that were very empathetic, but they couldn't quite connect to the impact this would have for us. Or they would maybe invite us to do things not thinking about the implications and what Ben could do, which is totally okay, because I'm happy advocating for that, to say, oh gosh, that's something that's a little hard. Here's a way we could modify it. But we would gravitate towards different friends who were really thinking about our entire family as a unit. And I think that holds true for our entire family. As well as Ben's friends, he has some great friends and friends' parents who think about, hey, our son would love to have a birthday party. Here's what we're thinking about. Just want to check if this would be something that Ben could do, which is a parent, we try to be sure that we're doing everything we can so that that is accessible to him. But having those families who are thinking one more step ahead is so meaningful to us. And we tell them that too. We say, we really appreciate how you're thinking about this for everyone. So those are the friends that really seem like they're in with us for the long haul and are thinking about not only how they can include us, but include our entire family.
Thank you. So Heather, one of the most difficult days that I remember, well, there are many, is when I went to the department in the hospital where we were ordering a wheelchair. The transition from walking to not. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our boys are still mostly ambulatory. Liam at age 10, he's getting to the point where he can't walk distances that well. But his first piece of equipment was a mobility scooter, and he was 7, not even a year after he was diagnosed, not quite. And it was actually his school that brought to our attention that he was falling behind at recess, and he was always the last kid in, and it honestly broke my heart because I didn't know this. And then they suggested getting him a power chair. And I feel like Tristan and I were both like, no, he does not need a power chair. We're going to get him a scooter, And now that I think back on that, our younger son, he's 7, he just got a power chair, and he loves it. And I wish we wouldn't have had that attitude back when Liam first got his piece, his power scooter, because it's so much freedom for them and so much independence. They don't need to be pushed by anybody. They can go explore what they want. And Kellen's warmed up to his chair a lot faster than Liam warmed up to his scooter. But Kellen's just like that. He's very easygoing and just goes with the flow. But yeah, for us, it was definitely, emotionally, it was much more difficult than it was for our kids, which is a lot of things are like that in Duchenne. We think it's going to be traumatizing and horrible for our kids. And no. Most of the time, they're just like, okay, I need this, and it's going to help me. And so far, it's been a really good experience for our kids. And I think in the long run for us, we see that they're enjoying themselves, and they love coming here, seeing all the other kids and guys in their chairs. And they're doing okay with it. I think we're doing okay with it now. I don't know.
But it took a little to get there. So Jess, you're shipping your son off to college, right?
Yes. So Ben just completed 1 full year. He's going to kill me for saying this out loud, of community college. You guys, one thing that we talk about failure, but we were so concerned. I just have to say this before I continue, because I think it's an important story. We were so concerned about accessibility on college campus and where he would need help and everything, that I actually forgot to talk to Ben about college. And that first week he came home and he had all this syllabi, and he was like, what do? I have a project the 17th and a test on the 20th, and how do I organize this? And I was like, oh, we didn't even talk about actual college. We were so focused. But he got it figured out. So he finished his first full year at community college, struggled a little bit with calc, if anyone has any calc tips. And we went to tour the University of Illinois. They have a dorm on campus, Beckwith, that I think some people in our community actually have used, that has medical care that's meant for students with disabilities that need help with daily life activities. And he's ready to go. As he said the other day, someone asked him, why do you want to go? He's like, I want to get out of here. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm going to take that as a compliment. So it's really cool. So we're starting that process, and he would, if things work out, he wants to start school in January and go away and be 2 hours from us. And yeah, and I mean, there's a part of me that's like a little terrified, but there's also a part of me that's like, go, do it, do all the things. And yeah, it's a really, really cool place to be at right now. Again, I never imagined we would be here.
So Hannah, when you go away to college, do you want to go far, far away?
So I'm in my 5th and final year of college. I have one more semester where I'll be student teaching, which is very exciting. I'm about 5 hours away, which is a little farther than I'd like to be. I think it was a really difficult internal battle for me, and I know a lot of other siblings struggle with this when they get to like senior year of high school, of how far is too far, of like, I want to go out, I want to experience new things, but also what if something happens, what if I need to get home quick? So this was probably the farthest school from me, from like my parents' house that we toured, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. And I remember having a conversation with my dad on that campus of being like, should I? Like, it's really far, and he was like, go. Like, this is where you're meant to be, so just go for it. And I am so glad that I did. They have an incredible program for my major, and something that's really unique that I don't think I would have done without having a Duchenne sibling is their adaptive music program. So I've gotten the opportunity to work in music classes designed for students with disabilities, and it has just been really wonderful.
Thank you. So, you know, often what I think I see in myself and maybe other parents is that we try to be all controlling, right? And sometimes that doesn't promote independence because we're worried about the diagnosis and what it means and how it impacts and if they're safe, and we have 4,000 questions on a loop in our head. So Jen, how do you teach independence?
Yeah, great question. One thing that I've started saying in our house to all of our kids, but especially to Ben, is if there's something that he has the ability to do, I expect him to do it. So sometimes he'll say, can you reach me a Kleenex over there? I'm like, no, you can actually reach that Kleenex. But if you need help reaching something out of a cupboard, I absolutely will help with that. I also have been talking to him about, I mentioned he went to his friend's house. So I was saying, when you go to the friend's house, what do you think you guys will do? Where will you need help? And he said to me, he said, Mom, I will ask the mom if I need help, who's a friend that we know, and I know that she has some background on this. And I said, will you really? And I tested through a few things, and he said yes on all these things. When it got to something like the restroom, he was like, absolutely not gonna do that. And I'm like, good, well, I'm glad you're being honest with me. So I knew like what things he felt comfortable advocating for himself, and then where things we still need to continue to work. I also will reach out to the parents sometimes if I know them to say, hey, I'm gonna let Ben run with this. Here's all the things that he's gonna do. These things are a little question mark for me. So if you have any questions, let me know. Be sure to ask him, but directing them back to him as much as they can. I also ask him to think through, like we're packing up medication for him to travel, to say, okay, what things do you need? What do you take? He knows his medication just as good as I do, so he will reel off what things they are. It's easier and faster for me to do it sometimes, but I'm making him think through what are those medications, how do you need to be prepared for this? How much extra should we take for whatever that trip is? So I have him engaging with me in those conversations and to help think through those things. And then also helping him project through, like, what things will you need? Who will you be asking for? And then I also sometimes do that front running, you know, especially at school, I'll do that where I'll say, okay, you know, we've talked through all the things, we've set up our plan, but I'll check in with the school nurse and say, hey, how's it really going? What have you noticed? Is there anything that was a gap that we didn't think of? But I'm hoping that I continue to put Ben in the driver's seat of that, which also takes the load off us as parents too.
Thank you. And Tristan, in your boys, how do you promote independence?
Yeah, so a lot of what you said too is the stuff they can do, I like to tell them to try to do it. So like a lot of times they'll be like, I don't want to get up, can you get my water? And I'm like, you can still get your water, Liam, just walk over there and grab it. And school a lot is independence. Obviously I'm not there, or Heather. So we kind of check in with the teachers and the staff, and they kind of give us the updates, but we let them kind of do their thing at school. Obviously they have like the 504 and the IEP for things that they really can't do. But like recess, they can choose if they want to, if they feel like running that day, go out and run around. If they want to play with their friends, or if they just want to sit back and just take it easy that day. So yeah, it's a lot of letting them think about the stuff they can do and do that. And also, I told our buddy Gavin that if he had to sit through this and he could do it, I would give him a shout out. So if everyone could just wave to Gavin over there. There we go. All right. Thanks for staying, Gavin.
So I've heard a lot of people tell me once they receive a diagnosis, and even some of the individuals with this diagnosis have said it feels like a 24/7 panic attack. Is that true? Jen, you want to start?
Say it again.
A 24/7 panic attack. The 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're always thinking about what happens next, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what should I do in the next minute.
Yeah.
You know, and how do you manage that anxiety? And then you layer on the clinic visits, and then the possibility of trials, and all of those questions. How do you manage the anxiety of the 24/7?
Great question. First, very similar to some of what Jess shared, I was talking to a friend whose son had autism, and I remember talking to her, and I was sobbing about the diagnosis, thinking, I don't know how we're going to do this. And as she was talking with me, she was very empathetic, but she wasn't crying. And I remember thinking, Becky's not crying. I'm not going to cry about this every day, all day. Her son was probably 15 years old at the time, and so that gave me the little light at the end of the tunnel that at some point this becomes part of like your normal decision making. And I still hate that it's part of our normal decision making, but it is part of our normal decision making. There are things that we bucket kind of as a family. So when we get to our 6-month checkup, that's where we start to talk about, let's reassess medical trials. Let's look at these things so that we're not always doing that. We're always hearing what's coming in. But my husband and I have said, you know, we'll really think about at, you know, those 6-month intervals if there's anything we should be doing differently or considering differently. Otherwise, it was really easy for us to go down the bunny hole of every single day. Oh, we heard that there's a new thing, or we heard about the progress in this. So we made some intervals for ourselves to say, this is where we're going to look at these things. We also have gotten on great, I'll call it auto scheduling with some of those appointments that just always are happening. So something like a PT. So we know on Tuesday afternoons, that's when we see our PT. And there's some ways that we work that into our family schedule that make it really easy and us not having to think about it quite as much. Just like with other things too, I keep a side list of things that I'm like, I need to figure that out. Right now I need to figure out a shower chair. Haven't got it done yet, but I put it on the list. And sometimes when those take emotional energy, like I don't love that we have to have a shower chair in our house. I don't love that we need to use it. But there's some times where I'm more ready to attack that decision than others. And so when I have that little list sitting on the side, I can really dive into it.
Thank you. So, Hannah, you mentioned you're 5 hours away. Do you text your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister 1,000 times a day to say what's happening?
Not a ton. My mom can kind of speak about how I'm a little MIA when I'm at college. But I do think I text them pretty regularly. I think one of the things that we do a lot is I try to FaceTime them at least once a week. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But that kind of lets me stay updated with what's going on in their lives. Yeah, I think that's been a really valuable tool for us.
Or when she needs money.
Or when I need money.
Yeah? And Jess, you're going to, when he's away at college, you're going to text every other minute?
When I'm not sleeping in the parking lot those first couple weeks, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that, girls and boys are different just in general. I can text the girls a question, and they will give me a full answer and then explain why afterwards. And I can ask Ben, like, I can text him a page, and he'll respond, yes. So I think that's just the nature of it. I don't anticipate maybe some FaceTime calls. FaceTime's a cool thing. Yeah, so definitely different than this one over here.
So let's talk about social media. Not Dr. Google, he's good enough, right? But social media, because when I'm not very good at that. But I watch conversations. And I see conversations about emergencies, I see conversations about trials and whether you should or shouldn't and what happens next. And how do you manage that? Does it terrify you? Does it help you? Do you find it reassuring? Or do you think it causes increased anxiety? So I'm going to start with you, Tristan. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, Heather definitely does more of the Facebook stuff than I do. But Facebook at the beginning especially was super helpful because there's Facebook groups dedicated to Duchenne specifically that was able to kind of give you hope, as Dr. Google would not give you hope. But you could get like real answers and answers from people who've lived it, so Facebook was nice. And the other one, I like Reddit too, because Reddit has a lot of the older boys, and a few gals too, and they can chime in, and then you get an answer straight from somebody who's living it. So yeah, those are the two I mainly use.
It's helpful. Is it helpful for you as well, Heather?
I feel like that's a silly question because some of you in here already know that I'm on social media quite a bit. Yes, I use Facebook quite often. Like Tristan said in the beginning, I really needed that community and people to reach out to, because I didn't have that where we are. Kind of still don't have that in person a lot. So I like to be on Facebook a lot. It's been very helpful. There are some relationships that I've had on, really good friends that I go to for advice, who I trust to be honest with me and, not be judgmental. Other times I feel like sometimes it's not helpful. When you have a really big decision to make and you have some people telling you, like, being really positive about it and other people, bringing it down, and, that's really hard when you're trying to make a big decision because it feels like, I don't know, like some people don't think you're being, you haven't researched what you're doing. And so that can be hard sometimes when you're dealing with judgmental people. But I feel like overall this community is really helpful. If somebody asks me stuff on Facebook, I try to be honest with our experience. And hopefully I never tell anybody to just go ahead and go do something because that's a really personal choice. But yeah, I feel like social media has been good for us, especially me. It helps me reach out to people. It helps me advocate. And I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I've made some really great friends just by using social media, so.
Jen, has it been helpful? When someone's, when you say I'm going to do X and somebody says, no, that's not the best decision, does that make you second guess yourself?
That's a great question. I think for me, social media I use in two different ways. One is I use it as a news feed to understand articles, and I'm typically looking at something like, if you go back to your English classes, on something that's credible and something that I know is coming from a known source. I'll usually focus on the article and maybe a little less on the conversation beneath, knowing there's probably both sides of the opinion, or both opinions there. So I use that as a news feed to gain the articles and what's coming in, but then usually am making our own decisions and then also weighing those off trusted resources. The second piece is making connections, which I love when you come to conference and you get to see all these families that you get to see real time here in the summer, but then throughout the year you can keep up with, especially with Duchenne families. I think I sent Jess a message last year and I said, what was that pool floaty that Ben was in? That was awesome. Yep, we ordered the pool floaty. She sent me the Amazon link. We have 2 of them now. But just seeing like a life hack that somebody's figured out. We had tried so many pool floaties to figure out the right thing that provided support. And she wasn't talking about Duchenne. She just posted a picture of him saying we're having a great summer. And I was like, the pool floaty, that's what I need to know about. So having those connections and then just continuing to build those relationships. We get to see each other once a year, which is awesome. But knowing that you can reach out to those families anytime to say, hey, tell me more about that. And sometimes it's questions on, hey, we're struggling with this. I know you maybe have some experience. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you guys have approached it? So I use it for those 2 things. There are some feeds that I kind of weed out that are more opinionated.
Jess, same?
Definitely the connection part's super cool. I mean, it's really neat to, again, be here together, see your children grow up. I mean, friends from high school, see what they're up to. But I have found in the past year that social media does not bring me any joy, and so I'm really trying to limit it. It takes me away from the present moment. And yeah, I get a little anxiety from it sometimes. Like you see, especially all the arguing. Don't even get me started about our town mom group. It's anyway. I digress. I really try to maybe set aside some time, check on it, but not be on it all the time. Trying to focus on the more joyful things in life that I enjoy as an old woman, like a good book in my garden and a good cup of coffee. But yeah, so I feel it's good, but it can be used for evil.
Hannah?
Yeah, very similar to what my mom said. It's a very double-edged sword. I think that something good comes out of it is the connection. And also, as somebody who doesn't live at home anymore, since my brother's moving out to college, even just the like silly things like getting texts of memes or like TikToks that are something that we can relate to, especially he like will send us disability related ones. It's like, oh, we're not the only ones going through this. But from, I think, the perspective of somebody in her 20s, it can be so hard remembering that everything that you see is curated. And so I see my friends going on these trips with their families to like Europe and all going scuba diving, and I'm like, oh, good for you guys. But I think I still harbor a lot of jealousy with that, knowing that that's just not what my family looks like. And that's okay. And other families have their struggles too, but you don't necessarily see those. So I definitely, similar, I'm trying to ease back from it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely like a little bit addicted, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, very so-so on it.
Thank you. So I'd like each of you to tell me, if you had one thing to advise this audience, what is the one piece of information that you think is really important or that's a gap? You know, what's the one thing you'd like to change? And I don't want to say like you'd like a cure in a minute or you'd like a different diagnosis. So those two are out of bounds but I'd like some advice. Like, what would you advise a new family? What would you advise your son if he's going to college and going away? What would you advise your grandparents? Because now I have a granddaughter and I'd like to control her life. That's usually not welcome. But how do you think about that? And what's the advice for PPMD and for these industry partners? So give us a piece of your mind and a piece of advice. We'll start with you.
I gotta go first. Okay, my biggest advice would be to keep hope. There's lots of hope out there and good things that are to come. And, you know, we don't always get to plan the life that we imagine, but life just happens. And I think one of the best things for me that really helped me was after our first Liam was diagnosed, we had gone to a pediatric cardiologist just to get him tested. And I was still pretty depressed at this point. It was only like a month in. And the cardiologist came back, and he was an older cardiologist, and he said to me first, before he read any, first he said, everything's fine with the heart, by the way. But then before he described anything, he just said, first, things are changing in the medical field fast. Duchenne is not like it was even 10 years prior to that. He's like, so don't lose hope. This is what he said, I've seen diseases in my life that have been cured. And the medical thing is changing so fast that you can just don't lose that hope. There's still hope. Your boy's prognosis is not the same as it was 10 years ago. So that's my advice. Don't lose hope.
All right, Heather.
My biggest piece of advice is find your community. Find the people you feel comfortable with who don't judge you for any decision that you're making. And that you know, you might have to go outside of your comfort zone to find that community. A lot of my best friends are special needs families. And before my kids were diagnosed, I didn't interact with many special needs families, to be honest. But I found a lot of compassion in that community. And also, when I'm talking about finding your people, find the doctors that you feel comfortable with. Find the doctors that look at your kids and play with your kids and talk to your kids. That's extremely important to be able to feel comfortable with the doctors that you're seeing. Because you know the most about your child. And if you find a doctor that believes that about you, that's what you want. And we're really lucky that we found that in our doctors. So that's my advice, is just find your community, find the people you trust, and get along with.
All right, Jen.
Building off your answer there, once you find your community, be sure to ask them for the things that you need. And I'll say that I'm the first one to say, no, I got it, I'll figure it out. But pretty soon these things start to build up, and then you get to a point that you can't handle it. So I try and think, every week, gosh, what's one thing that I should be asking somebody to do? Sometimes it's part of their job. So like asking our school nurse, hey, how are things going? What are you noticing? Knowing that she's part of our community, she's always willing to answer that and even provide me with a perspective I couldn't get myself. Sometimes it's asking Ben that and saying, hey, what do you need? What are you thinking about? Or what's something that you could challenge yourself to do this week that historically we've done for you? And that's not always a physical task. Sometimes it's asking somebody for something that he needs instead of coming to us to ask them. So just thinking about how you can leverage that community that you have in place. I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me no. Like, no, I don't want to help you with that. I find people always tell me, Jen, I wish you would have asked us. We could have helped with that. So be sure that you're asking and thinking about those things where you can bring people into your community, and then also to help your son or your children to advocate for themselves too.
Jess.
This is all really good. I wish I could write this all down. I'm going to make a complete liar out of myself. Have you guys ever heard of Harry Baker? I actually found him on Instagram. So he's like this world championship slam poetry guy. And he had this piece that has stuck with me, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, but it's titled When Joy Comes Back. And the premise of it is joy doesn't come back, I guess thinking of diagnosis, I guess that's why it stuck with me. It doesn't come back in the form of fireworks or something big, that joy just creeps in. And in order to receive joy, you have to be a gracious host. You're going to be busy. I mean, we are busy people. We have a lot on our plate, a lot to decide, and someone to really care for. So be a gracious host. Take a breath now and then. Let joy come back in, because it's very easy to kind of block that out. And then twofold, just learn from my mistakes and take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually. Because you need to be there for someone. Prioritize yourself, take breaks, enjoy, laugh. I think for so long I was so focused that I missed a lot that I really could have enjoyed.
All right, Hannah.
I think my piece of advice would be to embrace the differences. And I mean this in two different contexts. The first one that immediately came to mind was that everybody's journey is going to be different. Me, my brother, my sister, my parents, we're all going through this Duchenne journey in such different ways. So everyone's going to have a different perspective, and it is so valuable to hear out other people's perspectives and talk to other people and connect with other people who have felt different than you, because sometimes that will be the thing that you need to hear. And also in embracing the differences in a different context, some of the harder things are going to turn into the things that you remember the most. I know it was so hard for my parents when my brother got his first scooter, but as a child, I was like, this is awesome, are you kidding? I can put on roller skates and he can drag me around our neighborhood? This is great. Or when he got a service dog who
We lost our sweet service dog.
But anyways, when we got this service dog, he was from Georgia, was very used to swimming in the pool, and he jumped into our pool. We have an above ground. He wasn't supposed to be in there, but I don't think we have ever laughed that hard in my life. I lost it. So the things that you're thinking are going to be hard, they're going to be hard, but there's also going to be moments of joy that you need to embrace.
Thank you. I'm going to end this with a story that this is the first time we've been in Las Vegas, maybe the last, but it certainly is the first time we've been in Las Vegas. We needed something reprinted. And, as all things happen, we have these last minute needs. And so when we wanted to reprint this very long, lengthy document that was in color. We went to the Kinko's here, and they said, you know, for a couple $1,000s, we'll do it, at which time Kayla Moitoso, our chief business officer, fainted on the ground. But there was one of the conference directors that had met us and had met all of you families. And he was really, it was obvious to Kimberly, he was touched by this, and he was listening to the conversation about reprinting. And when this conversation about how much it would cost to do that so quickly so that it was prepared, it was ready to go to be handed out, he turned and he said, I can do one thing for you, and I can print it in color for no cost at all. I think kindness shows. I think kindness is contagious. So I'd like to end this by, first of all, an amazing power of us as a community, but to say, I think the advice is give yourself grace and give others grace, because with that, we can change the world. Thank you so much for joining us. We're having a break, and then the gene therapy panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.